Hello, everyone. I'm Butch Bakani from the UN Environment Program. Welcome to the second session of the Principles for Stable Insurance at the UNFFI Global Roundtable. I hope all of you were able to, or many of you were able to participate in the previous session about harnessing insurance products and solutions for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And for this session, we'll dig a little bit deeper into one class of business in the insurance industry. So there's normally a lot of affiliation between insurance and, for example, property, the property insurance agenda. But there is a whole agenda for life and health insurers as well. And this is what we're trying to unpack in this session. Obviously, health is front and center in many of people's minds these days with the pandemic that we are all facing. And so we have a stellar cast with us. So we have Zelda Bentham from Aviva in the UK. We also have Tomas Carmona from SulAmérica in Brazil. We have Dean Siegel from Sun Life in Canada. We have Edmond Cree from HSBC Insurance in Hong Kong. And we also have our reinsurer, Angelique Bayot from SCOR in France. So to kick off this discussion, I will do a few scene-setting slides. It's the only presentation that we will have for this session. So the PSI's agenda with life and health, we're not starting from scratch. We knew from the very start that the PSI was born that this is the protection gap was an issue around the world, particularly with vulnerable communities. And life and health insurance plays a key role in that agenda. For example, if you look at low-income communities, they are dependent on day-to-day or paycheck to paycheck. And so health insurance, for example, for low-income communities and life insurance, be it for credit life or life insurance itself for in case of death, is also something that's useful for communities out there. So there are also things that have been around for a long time that are affecting people as health and life. And one of them is tobacco. And increasingly, we are seeing more and more insurers and investors going into tobacco-free finance. And you can see there, in fact, we're going to have a webinar next week around this, that if we don't turn the corner, 1 billion people will die prematurely from tobacco-related disease. That already, as we stand right now, 8 million people are dying every year. And if you want to address that from an environmental agenda, cigarette butts is the #1 litter by count. It's the world's most littered item that's also affecting the ocean. And so plastic pollution, as I mentioned, last year we did the first ever study on how plastic pollution could impact the insurance industry as insurers and investors. And we are seeing there in our heat map, for example, that on the insurance side, it seems like liability insurance alongside marine and health are the top 3 lines that could be most relevant, particularly on the health side, if you look at the agenda of microplastics and how this may impact human health going forward. And so we have also started to making sure that this agenda for life and health, not simply as long-term investors, but in the context of their core insurance business, can be leveraged in the context of sustainability and what it can do in terms of risk management services and insurance products and solutions. And in the previous session, we talked about the insurance SDGs initiative of the PSI. And one of the global goals we're looking at is whether we could have a global goal on health insurance, both in terms of insurance and health risk management services as we approach the 2030 horizon of the SDGs. So all of this is something that we are discussing at the PSI to shape a life and health insurance strategy going forward. And as we engage with insurers around the world, I've flagged there some of the issues that we are hearing from life and health insurers. It's not simply a climate agenda. It's also looking at, obviously, not only a pandemics agenda, but also looking at financial inclusion, mental illness. We just had World Mental Health Day the other day. Antibiotic resistance. So these are very specific issues that we've heard from life and health insurers. Also, for those of you participating, you have the chance to share us your views. We have three questions that you can answer throughout the session. One of them is a very focused question on COVID. What is the main impact of COVID on the life and health insurance business? Is it about claims? Is it about demand? Is it about opportunities going forward? Please share with us your thoughts on those ideas. It's on the right-hand side of the Identify platform, and there's a poll icon there that you can click to vote, and this will also inform our thinking going forward. Another question is, which of those 10 issues do you think is are the most important top 3 issues for the life and health insurance business? And that would also be very interesting to find out as we go along. And the third question is, how can we drive this agenda on life and health insurance more effectively going forward? Do we need more research on the links between sustainability and life and health insurance? Is it more life and health insurance stepping up to the plate? Is it more collaborative initiatives by life and health insurance? Is it really looking at market bodies trying to play an active role, or regulators or investors and NGOs? So please share with us your views. It's on the right-hand side of the Identify platform, and you can vote, and we will gather that and perhaps share that if you have time. So let's carry on with our discussion and make sure and we get on with our discussion right now. So, and to kick off things, we'll start with Zelda Bentham from Aviva. Zelda, you're there in the UK, and obviously Aviva has been active on the SDGs for some time as well. But I think this time, if you have a focused perspective on life and health and sustainability, what would be some of the primary thoughts that you would like to share with our audience?
Yes, thanks very much, Butch. And like the non-life area of the business, sustainability issues and risks such as aging and mental health and access and inclusion, as well as climate and environmental factors as interconnected issues, very, very much affect life and health side of the business. And the PSI principles are just as applicable to that side of the business. You know, there's pieces in there such as provide customers with information and tools that help them manage ESG risks and issues, develop products and services which reduce risk and encourage better risk management. And so Aviva has taken that very much to heart. Over the last 18 months, we've been refreshing our purpose, which is with you today for a better tomorrow. And we think that fits very, very well with the Brundtland definition of sustainability, both looking at today's needs, but also tomorrow's needs. We believe insurance shouldn't be transactional. It should be about having a relationship with our customers. And we're increasingly developing our thinking on that within our products and services. But firstly, you need to know what your customers are thinking about these issues. And we carried out a survey in 2016 and again in July 2020. And it was focusing on what concerns customers have, both their global concerns and their personal concerns. Understandably, disease and pandemics were increased from 15% to 50%. Concern about climate change and pollution increased from 23 to 19%, 23 and 19% respectively. And from a personal concerns point of view, serious illness stayed at 46%, and poor health increased from 36% to 41%. So despite the pension freedoms that we have in the UK now, they came in around 2016, over 30% of people are still concerned about having insufficient money in their retirement. So knowing all this and focusing that insurance is more than a transaction, these are a couple of examples that I want to share with you today. So for example, on climate change, we did a prevention piece in our Polish business. It was called I Know What I Breathe. And it was an app that linked to 400 sensors in different communities, pollution sensors measuring the air quality, so that any member of the public would be able to see how polluted the air was on a particular day, and particularly those that had respiratory diseases that pollution could exacerbate. They could see the air quality and take preventative measures accordingly. We link that with our life insurance product there, and as a result, the sales of that particular product went up by 9.6%. So a real issue for people, and making people more aware and able to manage this issue was very important to us. And again, going back to the insurance side of it, we've also taken that learning and we've linked it to our general insurance side of the business. So if somebody suffers a trauma such as a flood or a car accident, right, as well as putting them back in the position that they were in before in terms of their property, we also offer counselling services so that they can manage their mental health as a result of that trauma. So we're extending that life piece and that knowledge through to our general insurance business as well. I've got a few more examples, but I'll come back to them.
Thank you so much, Zelda. I just wanted to quickly follow up. I think you touched on a very core strand of the discussion, which is purpose. So it seems like you are saying is that it's not simply asking how ESG issues will affect your insurance business. It's how your insurance business will impact the environment and society. And so what has been the challenge at Aviva to get that thinking embedded into your culture, where sustainability is an outcome of everything that you do rather than a department saying you should do this or that?
Yeah, it's very much, you can send somebody, if somebody makes a claim on income protection and we pay them benefits, we can easily do that, but anyone can do that. But why are we doing it in the first place? Why are we paying them out? It's because they can't work. Why can't they work? Because they have an illness. If we can help with that rehabilitation, recovering from that illness, whether it's mental or physical, and get them back into work, then that gives them a better quality of service from us rather than just paying them a check.
Okay. Thank you, Zelda. Let's stick to the Northern Hemisphere. And so let's go to Canada, and let's hear from Dean from Sun Life. I mean, Sun Life is another big life and health insurer there, and it would be interesting to hear the thinking at Sun Life on this agenda. Dean?
Of course, thanks, Bertrand, and thanks for having me. So I'm still relatively new to Sun Life. I've been at the company for just over a year now. And my background is in management consulting and investment banking, but I spent most of my career working and advising some of the largest foundations and kind of socially oriented organizations in the world. So a lot of the United Nations entities and departments, the World Bank, the Gates Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation. And in a lot of my work, the North Star, or one of the key themes for me, and the organizations I was advising, was how could we get the largest companies in the world to embed a socioeconomic and environmental impact lens into everything they do, not off the side of their desk, but but in the core of their activities. And so Sun Life came to me with this opportunity to refresh their sustainability strategy, and it really spoke to that North Star, a sincere ambition to drive good social outcomes through what they know best. So it's a new role I'm in at Sun Life, and I'm leading our new sustainability strategy. And it's really focused on what we know best. And speaking of purpose, I think one of the things that was really exciting for me is Sun Life has a very compelling purpose statement. It's to help clients achieve lifetime financial security and live healthier lives. But it's not just a statement. They really try and walk the talk. And our sustainability strategy is essentially an approach to action or implement our purpose. So it has 3 core pillars. The first one is helping our clients achieve financial security. The second is helping our clients live healthier lives. And then the third is helping our clients invest sustainably. And as a life and health insurer, and as a large asset manager with over $1 trillion of assets under management, that's really exciting for me, because that's where we can really have the most impact. So just to give you a few examples of some of the things we're doing, and it's really encouraging to see the broader industry and all my colleagues on this panel moving towards this approach. So this year, we launched within our group retirement services business in Canada an ESG framework to help our clients understand how to invest sustainably. So in Canada, we run the largest group retirement business. I think we have over $130 billion of assets under administration. And our goal really is to try and get our clients to invest in the best performing sustainable fund managers. But the problem is that there's all these ESG metrics out there, and it's really hard to compare and contrast between, and there's no coverage of all the funds that we offer. And so we launched this framework to help our clients, number one, make informed decisions when it comes to sustainable investing towards their financial security. But also number two, we're hoping to elevate the entire market. So by going to the fund managers on the platform that may not be performing as well as it relates to ESG and sustainable investing, and asking them and providing guidance in terms of where to improve. So it's a very exciting time at Sun Life. So we've launched this new strategy, and we're working towards implementation. And it's really focused on what we know best. And it seems like this broader movement around not having sustainability off the side of your desk, but truly embedded in your business, is really going to drive the most impact. So that's really exciting for me.
Thank you so much, Dean. And I think it's very interesting how you are, in a way, matching and aligning core purpose of security with the fact that you can help your clients on ESG and invest sustainability that relates to the financial security purpose that you were trying to do. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is happening, for example, in Canada? Given that is there anything that the industry collectively is trying to do more on the role of life and health insurers as insurers in terms of for example, the COVID or other issues? Just to get a sense, as this is something front and center in people's minds right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. A lot of important topics that we're looking at and trying to address. I think the one that bubbles up to the top, especially within our Canadian business, is mental health. So there's a mental health crisis currently in Canada, and I can only imagine how much that will be exacerbated by COVID and by working from home and by having to take care of kids while having a full-time job.
Likewise.
We've seen it in our business. So our disability claims and costs are much higher than we expect. And so we're trying to do a lot there to address the mental health crisis. It's a multifaceted issue. There's so much that goes into it. One of the important things that we did very quickly, just at the outset of the pandemic, is launched virtual health services for our clients. So you can open an app on your phone, connect to a certified healthcare provider and very quickly either kind of diagnose what is wrong and figure out next steps. And that was really important. But we're trying to go above and beyond. One of the more exciting areas is around mental health benefits. And it's one thing to kind of provide that benefit to employers and for the employees to use, but it's another thing to get folks to actually use that benefit. And it might not be in our short-term financial best interests if all our group clients are using their mental health benefits, but it's most definitely in our long-term financial interests, especially as it relates to our disability business. So moving forward, trying to get kind of a mental health check-in or a mental health checkup as commonplace.
Welcome everyone to this panel entitled Driving Sustainability Through Fintech.
Very good, and thank you. That's quite interesting, Dean, to understand that it's also using technology to reach people there amidst the pandemic, and also highlighting mental health.
And data regime, which is heavily reliant on
the official definition, really, people tend to focus a lot on physical health, but mental health is just as important. So this is the real definition of health: is both physical and mental well-being. Okay, let's go to the Southern Hemisphere and let's go to Hong Kong. And we have the CEO of HSBC Insurance in Asia and also for Life International, Ed Moncrief. Ed, share us your thoughts on this topic there.
Yes. And I'm here today because over the past several months I was trying to understand what is the impact of the portfolio I manage and how can I use that information for further develop my business
on the
franchise.
investment side.
Thank you very much, dear.
With a number
Angela,
of other life and health insurers in this part of the world. As an institutional investor, we're holding over $80 billion of bonds and equities, and I think we've been quite focused over the past 4 to 5 years on the ESG elements of that portfolio and the way that we invest in companies
related financial
particularly through climate impact
and other leading frameworks.
I think sort of chapter 2 was really wrapped around our drive for financial inclusion,
where this technology
insurance can be, whether we like it or not,
and to take us on that journey
exclusive.
And on that conversation,
life insurance in particular, it's complicated.
Today.
It frequently requires access to professional and costly intermediation.
A 5-minute keynote,
and it has a number of
what
legal
are
concepts,
these new digital ESG data sets?
Such as insurable interest, for example, which can explicitly exclude parts of society from accessing it. So breaking down these barriers has been a massive focus for us over the past 24 months or so. Making sure that we use plain language rather than legal language, making sure we have communication and education channels that are differentiated between the customers we have who are in their 80s and the customers we have in their 20s. And also we changed all of our underwriting policies, right? So we started to recognize same-sex couples, we started to recognize de facto couples cohabiting together, and kind of broke down some of the more legalistic historical challenges that the life insurance industry was being constrained to. And I think the third chapter, which we're entering now, which is probably the most exciting one of the lot, is looking at ESG through the liability side and the products we manufacture, the risks that we write. And health and well-being is absolutely at the forefront of this. Specifically for us, it's how we pivot from being a reimburser, a payer when things go wrong, towards being a preventer, towards doing education, towards doing more early stage intervention so that our customers stay healthy. That they don't get sick, that we incentivize them to improve their risk profile. We give them access to the best services when they need it. Right? And it's important in Asia where generally sort of the public sector primary care provision is pretty low and social security nets are pretty holy. So I think this is very much aligned with Sustainable Development Goal 3 of the UN around good health and well-being. And COVID-19 has obviously just accelerated this 100 miles per hour. And actually the way that the media has started to report on this and subjects like comorbidities And, much of the world now realizes if you're obese, if you're suffering from diabetes, you have a much greater risk of being hospitalized from COVID rather than being asymptomatic. So slowly, awareness around morbidity and keeping healthy is happening. I think it's up to insurance companies to really take this challenge on and deliver even more to customers. And I'm very excited that we are taking that challenge on, and I'm excited to see where it will take us.
Thank you so much, Ed. I think that's very clear. Your 3 chapters at HSBC seem to be the path to self-actualization, if we follow Maslow's hierarchy of needs, into reaching the full potential of HSBC as an insurer on sustainability. And I think that agenda is very interesting, of being a preventer and not just a payer. So this is really saying, in essence, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. You will be there when losses happen, but no one wants losses to begin with. So you want to be a partner with your clients in terms of managing risk. And this, again, speaks to what we discussed in the first session about risk being the raw material of the insurance business, and being able to manage risk and to help clients is something I think that you're using. And I just wanted to follow up. I mean, you are in Asia, and Asia, just like Europe and the Americas, is as diverse as one can be in different markets. So what are the sort of challenges that, as you roll out this second and third chapter of the sustainability agenda for HSBC Live, what are the sort of challenges that you are experiencing in very diverse markets like Asia?
I mean, thanks, Butch, and I'll come to that in a second. I just wanted to pick up on your earlier comment about risk, right? Because you're 100% right. And if you think about it in layman's terms, 400 years ago, marine underwriters in Lloyd's of London would have been giving maps to their insured policyholders, just to make sure that ultimately the customer, the ship owner's property and cargo would get to the Americas in the most efficient and safe way. I mean, what the health insurance and life insurance industry need to do is the same thing. We need to be providing more information, more education, more support, more incentives to our customers so that they can manage their risk profile better, right? And that's a societal value add, right? Again, otherwise we're just writing checks. There's very little net gain for society on that basis. So I think the challenge that we have in Asia are many, right? I think firstly, awareness around ESG is significantly lower than in most parts of the West, particularly in Europe, right? And quite often there's not an audience there to talk to. So I do think this is a competitive advantage, for us and for other. We see other multinationals starting to make these noises in Asia as well, because I do think there will be brand relevance and there will be customer advocacy for the insurance companies that are able to really portray and parlay a sustainability agenda. Because, to be frank, it's not on the table of a number of players in this region. And there are a number of societal, economic, and governance reasons why that's the case. So I think firstly is the market context. Second is the regulatory context as well. I do think regulators have a role to play to really promote ESG and to incentivize market participants to do so. Again, the regulatory nature in Asia is much more fragmented, much more, can I say immature, because we're dealing with markets that generally have 30, 40, 50 years less experience than what we would see in the US or in the West. I mean, those are the two primary ones. The one I'd anchor on the most in terms of the biggest challenge, but also the biggest opportunity, which is back to the subject of health and well-being, right? We are dealing in massively, very, very fast aging societies. And Japan is obviously the vanguard of this. Japan, I think, the private sector and the public sector 20, 30 years ago started making some pretty material investments in robotics and in processes so that the elderly population of Japan could be cared for, could be looked after, and could live, a fulfilling life the last 5, 10, 20 years without becoming an enormous burden on the next generation or on the state. Other Asian economies have not made that step. So there is a real challenge, especially in markets like Hong Kong, where you're going to see, if things continue the way they are, you're going to see roughly 30% of the population over 60 suffering from degenerative diseases. And the absence of a social security net, you're going to see roughly 4 or 5% of the working population having to be informal caregivers. That's just a massive, massive cost for society. It's a huge cost for employers. It's a huge cost for the individuals in terms of their opportunity costs, income protection pieces that Dean mentioned earlier, right? So that's a big, big challenge. How do we solve for long-term care? How do we solve for funding of degenerative treatments and ultimately ensuring the elderly population in these Asian markets where the cultural family bonds are so tight? How do we ensure that these get protected in the coming years?
Thank you so much, Ed, you touched on a bunch of issues there: aging, the role of regulators, demographics. And so I think it speaks to the diversity of markets that we have right now. And I think it will be a challenge. But I think out of all of those challenges, I think if you flip it, that means where there's great challenge, there's also great opportunity to make a difference. So thanks for that, Ed. And let's stick to the Southern Hemisphere and move over to Brazil, where we have Tomas Carmona from SulAmérica joining us. Tomas, what's the situation there at SulAmérica in Brazil?
But hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. SulAmérica, since July, it's now a pure health and life business. We no longer have our P&C business, so we are focusing a lot on how this new business action will connect with our sustainability agenda and also with our purpose, which was revealed as well. Now we do have a purpose that is to improve people's lives by providing support and safety in every moment and decision. And this is a purpose that will help us to make more impact on society. Brazilian society is in a contest with big challenges and big opportunities as well. In terms of market, the penetration of health insurance is nowadays in 22% of the population. We have more than 200 million people. And this shows us a challenge and an opportunity in terms of access. If we look to pension funds, the penetration, it's only 6% of the market. So the protection gap is huge in terms of retirement. We do have the public pension process, but it's not enough for the market and for our society protection. So now we are also approaching health on a more integral way. We are saying that it's important to have a balance between your physical health, your mental health, and your financial health. This is fully connected with our health, dental, life, pensions, and investments business. So that's the way we are approaching the market, and we are talking with our value chain and also with our clients.
Thank you so much, Tomas. I think you have 200 million in Brazil, and you said the protection gap there is huge, and so it seems like there's a main agenda, which is chapter 2 of Ed's self-actualization journey on sustainable insurance, which is on financial inclusion. And Dean had mentioned something about virtual healthcare in Canada. How is that shaping up in Brazil? This idea of telehealth, telemedicine, is that something that you're increasingly tapping, especially with the situation right now?
Yes, the situation right now with COVID accelerated a lot our telemedicine, and we used to have an orientation by screen, but now we do have a possibility of our clients to do a consultation with a physician, and also the prescription process, and they can get all the paper to do the exams, the paper of the authorization for exams and things like that. So we were in a digital transformation since the end of 2018, but we did a huge acceleration in the start of the pandemics with these services. And now we are putting the solution into other products as well. So our patients and life clients are also having access to telemedicine. So it's a way to show that we have solutions that provide the integral health, as I mentioned before.
Thank you very much, Tomas. And it seems like based on the online poll, I can just share with the panelists the result. The main impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on life and health insurance, 71% have said that it represents more opportunities to develop risk management services, for example, telehealth, telemedicine. So this speaks to chapter 3 of ED, and what you're just saying, Tomas, and what Dean had mentioned, and also every one of you has mentioned so far. And 29% say that it seems to be affecting less insurance coverage. So there's a big chunk of people who think that it represents a big opportunity to manage risk better and help clients. So, and that speaks well. So let's move on to our last speaker, Angelique Bayot from SCORE in France, and let's go back to Europe. As a reinsurer, so they insure insurance companies, and so that's their core business. So Angelique, your thoughts on this agenda, please?
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So I'm very happy to be here with you today. So indeed, I'm representing a reinsurer, so I expect my approach to be somewhat different from my fellow panelists. So as a reinsurer, we are not in direct contact with the end consumer, but we are providing our client insurer with a specific expertise, especially regarding underwriting, claims management, new product solutions, and so on. So in that context, the first point I think for us at SCORE is a priority for the agenda of the PSI, and this has been further stressed by the COVID pandemic. It's about health prevention through health and wellness monitoring. By the COVID pandemic, health and wellness. So we have seen through our own studies that people are more and more interested in their health, particularly in the post-COVID world. And we have seen that during the pandemic, that patients with comorbidities such as more obesity were more at risk. So we think that as lifestyle is also a key driver for non-communicable disease in OECD countries, the industry has a great role to play to support health-conscious clients, to encourage people to live healthier lives, and also even when they have a disease or a serious disease, we can help them access a doctor. I mean, it can be a prevention, primary prevention, secondary prevention, as we say in our jargon. The other health issue which has gained importance is mental illness. So it was mentioned by my colleagues. So the pandemic has stressed the impact of mental illness issues on the population, and particularly during extended lockdowns. We know that there are some new solutions to bring, either through innovation with wearables and sensors that help detect changes in emotions and so on, that can be used. So we are also very interested in finding solutions to prevent mental illness. The third point for me is about the fact that the perception of life insurance has improved during the pandemic. So we see that a higher number of people are seeking to buy insurance, particularly during lockdown. And this drives me to my next topic, which is that we, as a reinsurer and insurance company, we should make sure that we can easily deliver the right product to the consumers through new digital channels with less paperwork. So I'm thinking about with less paperwork. So one of processes, telemedicine, electronic health record also that could be used to replace the traditional in-person medical underwriting. And finally, the last but not least, the point that we that is in our heart at the moment at SCORE is it's about making insurance more inclusive. So for people who have pre-existing conditions, cancer survivors, or people presenting multiple risk factors, we see that they have to pay substantial premiums, or even they don't have access to insurance in some countries. So we know now that with the help of machine learning and data modeling, we can now develop some new risk calculators and potentially offer good quality product to these people at an affordable price. So that's maybe too early in the process to present this with you, but we had the idea SCORE to propose the creation of a charter for inclusive insurance, and in which our members would commit to provide insurance to specific populations. Of course, it has to be decided. It could be HIV positive people in countries where they cannot afford insurance, or cancer survivors. So that's my, I would say, my main point that I'm happy to further elaborate with you.
Thank you, Angelique. And in many ways, you tied everything together, and that has been said so far from, if I remember correctly, the statistic, I think mental illness represents 28% of the global disease burden. And that's a big figure that when I saw it, I didn't know it was that big, but that's at the global level. So, and I think the idea of, the WHO would be happy to hear from you today, because you're using terms like primary prevention, which is like what is one of the main angles of the WHO is actually how can you prevent illness and disease. So I think we have an agenda. I wanted to ask, you mentioned digitalization, and I think protection gap and financial inclusion are key topics here. What are the things that would enable you to do what you have outlined effectively? What are the challenges for you as a reinsurer that you think are needed to overcome and really utilize all of the key priorities that you want?
I think that's the point that I've raised last year during another UN PSI panel. It's the access to data, even public data, is something which is quite difficult for insurers or reinsurers. As a reinsurer, we are using a lot of data. It's not personal data, but anonymized data, because we are working on risk factors, not the situation of each individual. So we are, of course, managing carefully the personal data. We are coping with all the regulation and so on. But what we see at the moment that it's quite difficult for us to have access to more data, more public health data, and it's really helpful when you want to provide a new insurance cover to people who have a specific risk. It's really important to have more data, and if you don't have this, you are not able to properly assess the risk and propose the fair price to these people. But at the same time, it's really a very sensitive issue, we know, and that's something that could be faced also in this UN PSI. And of course, health institution regulators are really in this process.
Yeah, thank you, Angelique. So in the last, because we are very strict on time, so we need to finish it in 15 minutes strictly. So in the last 15 minutes, I want a chance to be able to get back for you to have a final a parting shot. And let's start with Zelda. So having heard what everyone has said, and since we're all active listeners here, What is the parting shot? So it seems like if I summarize everything, the 21st century sustainable life and health insurer would invest in a sustainable way, would do as much as possible to close the protection gap, and would be a partner in managing risk with customers and preventing losses to begin with, in addition to just being there to pay losses and write checks. So what would be the parting shot for you, Zelda, as we advance this life and health insurance agenda? What would be the parting shot for you to really move the needle and really unpack this agenda and actually harness what life and health insurance can bring for sustainability?
I think for us, we have to be across the new challenges all the time. We're seeing things like long COVID coming up, and the effects of that. That could be mental health, or it could be shortness of breath, fatigue. You know, the classic symptoms of viral diseases. So it's how can we adapt our products to address these new issues that are coming up, and we've done that. We have some work on that, and it's the kind of preventative and the kind of, as I say, more than the transaction. So the access to health professionals on a 24-hour basis, the access to medicines that even in the public health service that we have in the UK may not be possible to some people, and you know where private healthcare is too much for some people. It's making those products accessible. Things like we have an essential cancer product that is £2 a month, covers you for a lump sum, covers you for medicines that you can't get through the National Health Service in the UK, and then that access to expert health provision on a 24-hour basis to talk about your diagnosis and how you can help yourself.
Thank you so much, Zelda, for that. Very interesting. I think being relevant, being adaptive. Long COVID is an emerging issue, but also being the reality check there that, you know, not everyone has an NHS or Social Security out there. And so there's a lot of people, frankly, left out in the cold there, and COVID has exposed this across markets. Dean, final thoughts from you?
Thanks, Portia. No, I love the way you summarized it, and I think I would jump on what Ed said earlier, because I think it was a lovely framing around there's this opportunity for life and health insurers, and I mean we're speaking to the choir for those on the panel here today, but to really move from kind of a payer and a reimburser, you know, give a check at the end of the day, to an institution that helps to prevent and mitigate risks. The life and health insurance business is so interesting because at the end of the day, for the most part, our interests with our clients and driving good social outcomes are totally aligned. But I think there's a ways to go for the industry to start to actually measure social outcomes, and for us to understand that it's in our long-term best interests, both financially as well as just general resiliency for our community. So there's so much that this industry can do to drive great social and economic outcomes. And if we start to move to being more of a preventer and risk mitigator, in addition to a payer, we can have significant impacts.
Okay. Over to you, Ed, and don't talk about marine insurance.
No, I mean, just to reiterate what Zelda and Dean just said, right? I mean, if you're a life and health insurer and you're not doubling down on sustainability, then you're probably in the wrong industry, because by our very nature, sustainability is core to our future profitability. We are long-term investors. We invest in 30-year bonds. Why would we invest in assets and in companies which are not going to be around in 30 years, or are going to be existentially challenged through climate change or through social progress or anything else, right? But the single largest costs that we pay are related to claims of people not being well. Why would we not want to reduce the single largest expense and outgoing that we incur as a company? Right? And then the third thing is, to the point you just made, Butch, not every country has a great social security net. And actually, where I am in Asia, very few do. And that's an opportunity for private institutions to fill the gap. And we talked about telemedicine earlier. I mean, China is the best at this, right? And you look at what insurance companies in China have provided, just solving for the geographical challenges for 1 billion people to access face-to-face, clinical diagnosis. And insurance companies stepped up through technology, delivered teleconsultation, telemedicine. And that's now happening across the region through different lenses and to different scales. But it's an example, whether it's a protection gap, a health gap, a retirement gap. This is our business, right? And I think it's Dean said, we're preaching to the choir here, right? And I just think if we can continue to preach as loud as possible and preach to our customers, to our investors, and to the wider market, in particular the local markets, then I really do think this is an industry whose own profitability in the future will be materially higher than what it is today.
Thank you so much, Ed. And I do believe, based on really, having been involved in the PSI for a number of years, that there is a lot that is underappreciated and in fact unrecognized in a life and health insurance context. Even as we speak right now, even on the non-life side, I do believe that there's a very little appreciation of what marine insurance can do on the agenda. So rest assured that we will. You need to become viral there in Asia and positively infect people with the sustainability virus. All right, Thomas, parting shot.
Yeah, I think we need to help our production chain to organize itself to work better with the promotion of well-being and disease prevention, because there is this challenge of the culture of the population that focus on disease. So with this patient engagement, regulation, a better understanding on how social and environmental risks impact health and life business, and how we integrate this to our enterprise risk management. There is also the expansion of this approach of integral health, searching the balance between mental, physical, and financial health. With this, we will have a direct positive impact on well-being, and we will be able to provide more health services through technology. And this will help with this greater health chain alignment. So that are my final thoughts here.
Thank you so much. And I think there is a lot of relevance in what you just said in terms of what can be taken forward, the alignment internally, the opportunity to engage clients and stakeholders on this agenda. This is the main objective of this session. Obviously, is not only being iterative and asking each other, but also unpacking this for a wider audience there who may be unfamiliar with what life and health insurers can do. And so let's move on to Angelique. Your final thoughts, Angelique, as we close this session.
Yes, thanks, Butch. So I think we have the chance as an industry to have our interests aligned on the interest of the end consumer. And that's something that we all agree here, I think. We have also a lot of battles, potential topics to tackle, like health, but mental illness, long-term care, inclusive insurance. I reiterate on this topic. So we all agree about this topic as being our priorities. So I'm just wondering how we are going to combine and to commit to change or to push further our efforts. I know at SCORE Global Life, we started to publish some non-financial metrics to measure our impact on society. For instance, the number of policies that we are covering with our insurance client. but it can be also the number of claims we pay or the number of new solutions we propose to that benefit to people. So we can. I think we are now. It's the next step is to start to come into some common efforts.
Thank you so much, Angelique. So we have 5 minutes left, and I thought, that has been a really, for me, a first discussion really on what we can take forward. I mean, particularly in a post-COVID world. And I just wanted to share a few of the poll results as well for the benefit of people out there. The second question about what are the most important sustainability issues for life and health insurance business. 40% said pollution is a big issue, 20% obesity and unhealthy lifestyles, 20% social and financial inclusion, another 20% tobacco and e-cigarettes. And the third question on how can we drive this agenda forward more effectively in the life and health insurance business, 40% said more collaborative initiatives on life and health insurance. So I think that's what we're trying to show here. 40% said more sustainability leadership commitments, leadership and commitments by insurers on life and health insurance. And 20% say that more engagement by regulators on life and health insurance and sustainability. So this is not simply a market agenda. It is also an agenda for regulators. It's also an agenda for other key stakeholders, civil society who are engaging with insurance companies, investors who are also shareholders, which brings me to my last point. I think what we have unpacked in this session today, in the last 57 minutes, is in the investment space. There's this very mature discussion about the power of investors as shareholders, and so this agenda of shareholder engagement has been something that investors have been wielding as an influence to change corporate practices. And I think the equivalent on insurance is largely untapped, which is insurer engagement influence. And this engagement could be applied whether you're engaging with clients and customers or you're engaging with, in fact, investors themselves or regulators. And I think this is one thing that we can all build on. And in the context of a post-COVID world, I think the agenda of really combining the risk management role of an insurance company along with the financial risk management role of insurance and the investor role really gives, for me, the life and health insurance industry a really monumental opportunity to help build back better, stronger, greener, and healthier. So on that note, thank you to all of you for participating on this panel. Thank you to all of you who have listened, and stay safe, and wishing you all the wealth of good health. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.